A little earlier, we talked about the CDC sending a team to Colorado because of the bird flu outbreak here in our state.
5 workers have been infected and more than 1 million chickens have been culled. And that is why we bring in our 9 News medical expert, Dr. Payal Kohli, to tell us a little bit more about bird flu and the virus itself and how it spread. I mean, I think initially people were like, okay, whatever, it's just among the chickens. Can it spread to humans?
Well,
we've been seeing this.
that it can, and in fact, so what's different about this virus? It's not a new virus. It's been around for a decade, but it's been in birds. This year, we saw that it genetically changed and moved to cows, and from cows, it's now able to spread to humans. So thankfully, yet we haven't seen human-to-human transmission, but what we do know is that it's genetically evolving, and that means the more infections, the more likely that it can change.
So from chickens to cows to humans, is that making its way to humans via food, or is that because people who are around infected cows or infected chickens, is that how they get sick?
Yep, so far what we've seen is infected secretions. So if you're handling any kind of cow secretions or feces or any other infected respiratory droplets, we've also seen transmission amongst animals with infected materials, like equipment used to milk the cows.
So you'd have to be around the living chicken, the living cow to become infected at this point.
At this point. But we're very precautious about food because we don't know yet whether or not you can catch it through transmission in food. Now with milk, it seems like they're just viral particles or fragments that are not actively infectious. But with poultry and with eggs, there's possibly a higher risk. So the recommendation by the CDC is to cook everything to greater than 165 degrees internal temperature. So no rare steaks right now, because that's what inactivates the virus.
So no poached eggs or over easy eggs.
What is 165 degrees in an egg? Is that like
It's like fully cooking. So you don't want over
Firm.
easy, you don't want poached, exactly. You want to make sure that it gets hot in the middle, you cook it all the way, and that would be the safest way to consume eggs right now.
So there's a lot of people that have their own chickens.
Yeah.
They raise their own chickens for their own eggs and things like that. Should they be just as concerned?
Well, I think if it's in your chicken group, it might spread very efficiently, but getting into your chicken group is the question. So if it's completely isolated from the other chickens, it's unlikely to transmit through the air and carry to the chicken group. So the way we want to think about this is just like the flu spreads, that's how it spreads between animals. So if you have somebody with the flu in your house and they touch a doorknob and then you touch that doorknob and you rub your face and inoculate it, that's how you get it. Similarly with chickens and with cows, that's how it's spreading between them. But for humans, they actually have to handle secretions in order to get infected, so direct contact with the animal.
Are there different symptoms or dangers in humans if you have bird flu instead of COVID? Like, tell me about symptoms and dangers that come with bird flu.
Well, it's a kind of an evolving landscape, so to speak, because the symptoms are changing. But so far what we're seeing, at least with the humans that have been infected so far, it's much milder than the regular flu. So you can have some of those systemic symptoms, the fevers, the chills, the sore throat, the headache, and the pink eye is kind of a unique feature of this as well. But it tends to be milder than what we see with the regular flu or even what we've seen with some of the earlier strains of COVID. Now, if the virus gets genetically smarter and the more infections it has, the more chances it has to get smarter, learn how to spread human to human, not only could it become more virulent, meaning it could spread more easily, but it could also cause more symptoms as well.
That's a scary part. I mean, when initially, when you first heard about it, I think most of us went, what? Now we're hearing more and more. And we also heard about bubonic plague as well.
Yes, but before we go to that, I quickly want to mention the vaccines, because a lot of people in Europe are looking at influenza vaccines against the avian flu, and whether or not we should get an mRNA vaccine against this avian flu as well. So hopefully that's coming, at least if it starts to spread human to human. But we have a case of bubonic plague in Pueblo County.
Right.
And that was, if you recall, the bacteria that caused the Black Death, killed about 30 million people in the 14th century. And that spread from infected fleas that live off of rodents currently. But if a human being gets the bubonic plague and it gets into their lungs, that's called the pneumonic plague, then it can spread human to human again. So nothing to be super alarmed about right now, because we know that this particular bacteria, Yersinia pestis, lives endemic in Pueblo County and other parts of rural Colorado. But if you're going down there, or if you have any symptoms, and the symptoms of this particular plague are a little different because you get these enlarged lymph nodes, like bubbles, all over your armpits and in your jaw here and in your groin, that's a hallmark, and that needs antibiotics right away because it's very deadly.
Wow. Okay.
I'm against it.
I'm against it too.
But
that's all really important. We're not going to panic, but that's super important information we needed to know. Thank you, Dr. Kohli. You can always find much more with Dr. Kohli at 9news.com/Dr. Kohli.